If someone had told me that the man I trusted with my life would choose to abandon me at my weakest moment, I would have laughed and said, that only happens in cruel stories, not real homes. But life does not need drama to destroy a woman. It only needs timing. My name is Ananya Verma. I am 39 years old, living in a quiet residential colony in Noida, on the outskirts of Delhi. To the outside world, I was nothing special, just another Indian wife. Soft spoken, always at home, always adjusting. On paper, I was a homemaker, a woman who waited for her husband to return from work, a woman who lived on her husband's income. What no one knew, not even my husband, Rohit Verma, was that I was the silent backbone of a medical equipment distribution company supplying over 30 private hospitals across Delhi NCR. I signed contracts worth crores. I negotiated deals that saved lives. And I earned more in a year than Rohit had in his entire career. But I never told him, because I believed love did not need power. I believed marriage was about respect, not numbers. I was wrong, because the man who shared my bed every night believed I was weak. He believed I was dependent. He believed I would never survive without him. And then, when my body collapsed from exhaustion, when I lay alone on a hospital bed, fighting for my life, he walked in, not with concern, but with divorce papers in his hand. That was the moment I understood something painful. Some people do not reveal their true nature when they are angry. They reveal it when you can no longer fight back. If you have ever been ignored in your own marriage, if you have ever been made to feel small by the person who promised to protect you, stay with me, because this is not just a story about betrayal. This is a story about silence, about endurance, and about what happens when a woman finally decides to stop begging for respect and starts demanding it. And trust me, what happened after Rohit thought he had broken me was something he never saw coming. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated by someone you loved? And don't forget to subscribe, because stories like this remind us that dignity is never given, it is claimed. People often ask me when my marriage began to fall apart. They expect a big fight, a loud argument, a moment where everything exploded. But the truth is much quieter, much slower, and far more painful. The change in Rohit did not happen overnight. It crept into our home through small moments. Moments so ordinary that I ignored them at first. When we got married, Rohit was attentive. He asked how my day went. He noticed when I was tired. He held my hand while crossing the road. But slowly, those things disappeared. Rohit worked in logistics for a medical supply company. His salary barely covered our monthly expenses. Still, every time I gently suggested he look for better opportunities, he brushed me off. "Don't try to make me live by your standards," he said once. "I'm not your employee." I stopped talking after that. What he never knew was that my company had an opening at that time. A simple administrative role, decent hours, more than double his salary. I even spoke personally to HR and asked them to keep the position open. When I told Rohit, he frowned. "You think I'm useless," he snapped. "That I need my wife to find me a job?" I was stunned. The man who once promised to build a future with me now treated support like an insult. After that, I learned to stay quiet. Every month, I transferred 60,000 rupees into Rohit's account. Money for household expenses. Money for comfort. Money for peace. He spent it in less than 2 weeks. New shoes. Online games. Late night food orders. Then the messages would come. Complaints about fuel prices. Complaints about stress. Complaints about life being unfair. I knew where the money went, but I said nothing. Because it was not the money that hurt me, it was the way Rohit looked at me. In his eyes, I was a woman living off his income, a woman who stayed at home while he worked hard, a woman who should be grateful. He never asked if I was tired, never noticed the dark circles under my eyes, never cared that I stayed up till 2 in the morning answering emails from hospitals. To him, my exhaustion was invisible. The house began to feel cold, not physically, emotionally. If a towel was not folded properly, he snapped. If the television remote was not where he wanted it, he blamed me. Once, when the coffee machine stopped working, he accused me of breaking it even though he was the last one to use it. I started to feel less like a wife and more like a maid who could never do anything right. One evening, I came home from a long and tense meeting. I had not even removed my shoes when Rohit stood in the kitchen holding one of his shirts. "This shirt is not even ironed," he said. "Do you ever do anything properly?" I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because if I spoke, I knew he would twist every word and use it against me. The woman who negotiated contracts worth crores was now being judged over an iron. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, asking myself a question I was too afraid to answer. When did I become so small in my own home? If you are listening to this and something inside you feels familiar, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, how many times have you stayed silent just to keep peace? How many times have you made yourself smaller so someone else could feel bigger? Because silence does not save marriages. It only teaches the other person how much disrespect you are willing to tolerate. And I was about to learn that lesson in the hardest way possible. Stay with me. Because what Rohit did next would change everything. There is a moment in every story when silence turns into something heavier. A moment when respect is not just missing, but openly crushed. For me, that moment came on an ordinary afternoon. Inside my own home, my mother, Meena Devi, had come to visit. She was getting older, her knees weak, but her habit of caring for me had never changed. She brought homemade dal, cut fresh fruit, and quietly started tidying the house while I was attending online meetings. I could hear her moving softly in the background, careful not to disturb me. Just her presence made the house feel warmer. When Rohit returned from work, he dropped his bag on the sofa and looked around the living room. His eyes stopped on my mother. He sighed loudly and said, "Again, someone is sitting around in this house?" My mother froze. The smile on her face faded. Just for a second, but I noticed it. I stood up immediately. "She is not someone," I said. "She is my mother. She came to help us." Rohit shrugged, as if none of this mattered to him. "That is how you see it," he replied. "But I have the right to feel uncomfortable in my own house." The room went quiet. My mother tried to save the situation. "I was just passing by," she said softly. I did not mean to disturb anyone. Rohit opened the fridge, took out a bottle of water, and spoke without even looking at her. "I do not like outsiders during dinner time. Some people do not understand boundaries." That word stayed with me. Outsiders. The woman who gave birth to me. The woman who raised me with nothing but patience and sacrifice. An outsider. I saw my mother lower her eyes. She gently placed the bowl on the table and looked at me. "I think I should go," she said. "I will come another time." My heart dropped. I walked her to the door, each step heavier than the last. She did not complain. She did not cry. She just held my hand for a moment and said, "Take care of yourself." When the door closed behind her, the house felt empty in a way I had never felt before. I turned to Rohit. My voice was shaking now, Do you even realize how hurtful you are? He looked at me calmly. I am just being honest. If you cannot handle that, it is your problem. Something cracked inside me. From that day, everything changed. We still lived under the same roof. We ate at the same table. Sometimes we even watched the same television shows. But there were no random conversations, no shared laughter, no warmth, just routine. Rohit became more irritable. He snapped if things were not exactly the way he liked, if the towel was misplaced, if the food was too salty, if the room was too quiet or too loud. Every frustration in his life found its way to me. One evening, I returned home after a long meeting. I had barely stepped inside when Rohit stood in the kitchen, holding one of his shirts. "This is not ironed properly," he said. "Do you ever do anything right?" I looked at him. At the man who once promised to protect me. At the man who now spoke to me like I was nothing. I said nothing, because by then I had learned something important. The more I spoke, the more he blamed. The more I explained, the smaller I became. So I stayed quiet. But silence has a cost. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling my chest tighten for no clear reason. My head hurt. My body felt heavy. Sleep no longer brought rest. I was tired in a way sleep could not fix. And deep inside, a question kept repeating itself, soft but relentless. How long can a woman disappear before her body starts to break? I did not know it then, but my body was already answering that question. And it was about to answer it in the most terrifying way possible. Stay with me. Because what happened next was not just emotional pain. It was the moment my life was forced to stop. I wish I could say that I saw the collapse coming, that my body gave me a clear warning, that there was a dramatic moment when I realized I had gone too far. But the truth is, my body did what my heart had been doing for years. It stayed silent until it could not anymore. The headache started first, a dull pressure behind my eyes that never fully went away. Then came the dizziness. Moments when the room felt like it was slowly tilting, as if the ground itself was unsure whether it wanted to hold me. I told myself it was stress, deadlines, long hours, too much responsibility. Indian women are taught very early not to complain. We are taught that tiredness is weakness, that pain is something you push through quietly. So I did what I had always done. I ignored it. I continued waking up before sunrise, answering emails from hospitals, finalizing supply schedules, sitting through meetings where men spoke over me, never knowing the woman they dismissed so easily was the one approving their budgets. At home, nothing changed. Rohit still barely looked at me, still complained about small things, still spoke as if my presence was an inconvenience. One night, I caught a fever. My body shook under the blanket, my head burning, my throat dry. Rohit stood at the bedroom door, looked at me for a moment, and said, "Hurry up and get better. I do not have time to take care of you." Then he walked away. That was the night I realized something terrifying. I was married, but I was alone. A few days later, it happened. I was in the office, reviewing a contract. The words on the page began to blur. My hands felt numb. I tried to stand up. That was the last thing I remember. When I opened my eyes, white lights stared back at me. The smell of antiseptic filled the air. There was a beeping sound somewhere close. I was in a hospital, Apollo Hospital, Delhi. A nurse noticed I was awake and gently told me to stay still. An IV was attached to my arm. My body felt heavy, as if I had been underwater for too long. The doctor explained that I had fainted from extreme exhaustion, but he also said something else. Some of my test results were not normal. They wanted to run further scans. I nodded. At that moment, I was too tired to be afraid. 2 days later, I was moved into a private room. The doctor sat across from me, his face serious but controlled. We found a tumor in your pancreas, he said. It is early, but you will need treatment immediately. I heard the words, but they did not land right away. A tumor in my body. I was not afraid of the illness. What scared me was the silence. That night, I picked up my phone and texted Rohit. I told him I was in the hospital. I told him I needed to talk. There was no reply. I called him. The phone rang, then went to voicemail. I called again and again. Nothing. I lay there, listening to the hum of machines, watching the shadow of the window curtain move slightly with the air. For the first time in my life, I felt truly invisible. Treatment began quickly. Drips, injections, long hours staring at the ceiling. My body weakened. Food lost its taste. My hair began to fall out in small clumps. Every time I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My face was paler. My eyes looked older. But somewhere deep inside, something else was changing. I was fighting. Not because I wanted to prove anything, but because I refused to disappear quietly. For 2 weeks, I stayed in that hospital room alone. No husband, no family. I lied to my mother, telling her I was on a business trip. I could not bear to worry her. Each night, as the city lights flickered outside the window, I asked myself the same question. If I survive this, what am I surviving for? I did not know the answer yet, but I was about to find out. Because in the middle of my illness, when I was at my weakest, Rohit was about to walk into that hospital room and show me exactly who he truly was. And once I saw that, there would be no turning back. I had been in the hospital for almost 2 weeks when Rohit finally came. By then, I had stopped expecting him, stopped checking my phone every few minutes, stopped hoping for concern that never came. That afternoon, the nurse had just adjusted my IV and left the room. The curtains were half open. Soft sunlight rested on the floor. The room was quiet. Then the door opened. Rohit stood there. No flowers. No hesitation. No relief on his face. For a moment, I wondered if I was imagining him. But then he walked in, slowly, confidently, like this was just another task he needed to finish. "You are here," I said softly. My voice sounded weak, even to my own ears. He did not answer. Instead, he placed a thin brown folder on the small table beside my bed. The sound it made when it touched the surface was sharp. "Final. I have filed for divorce," he said. His voice was calm, professional, almost rehearsed. I stared at the folder. "The house and the car will be in my name," he continued. "I think that is fair." I looked up at him. He was not looking at me. He was looking at the wall. Then he said the words that still echo in my head. "As for you, I am not even sure how long you will be around." Something inside me broke. Not loudly, not dramatically. It was a quiet break, like glass cracking under pressure. He did not ask how I was feeling, did not ask what the doctors had said, did not ask if I was scared. He had not come to see his wife. He had come to collect what he believed belonged to him. I closed my eyes for a moment, not because I was weak, but because I refused to let him see what he had done to me. When I opened them again, my voice was steady. "Pick whatever you want," I said. "Thank you for coming." Rohit paused. He looked at me then, truly looked at me, as if surprised by how easily I had agreed. Not like you have much choice anyway, he said, before turning and walking out. The door closed behind him. I did not cry. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. Cold, clear, I whispered to myself, you just woke up the real me. I reached for the phone beside my bed and dialed a number I knew by heart. Arjun answered on the second ring. I need your help, I said. My voice did not shake. There was a brief silence. Then he replied, I have been waiting for this call. That night, as the hospital lights dimmed, I lay there watching the faint glow from the window. For the first time in years, I felt something I had forgotten existed. Control. Rohit believed he had abandoned a helpless woman, a sick wife with nothing left. What he did not know was that every bill in our house had been paid by me. Every loan cleared, every safety net quietly built in his shadow. He believed he was walking away with everything. In reality, he had just signed away the last protection he had. 3 days after his visit, Arjun came to see me. No sympathy, no dramatic words. Just a leather briefcase placed carefully on the table. Are you sure about this? He asked gently. I met his eyes. Yes, I said, and I wanted to begin immediately. Arjun nodded. He was the only person in the company who knew the full truth, that my identity had been hidden under legal layers, that contracts were signed in other names, that power does not always announce itself. The next morning, with my hands still weak from treatment, I signed a single letter, a termination notice. It ended the supply agreement between my company and the firm Rohit worked for. That contract made up more than half of their quarterly revenue. At 8 in the morning, the letter was sent. By mid-afternoon, my phone rang. The CEO of Rohit's company wanted answers. I gave him one. Calm, measured, final. Because the moment Rohit chose to discard me in my hospital bed, he stopped being my husband. And he became a consequence. If you are still listening, ask yourself something. What would you do if the person who underestimated you forced you to finally show your strength? Stay with me. Because Rohit was about to find out what it feels like to lose everything he took for granted. Rohit came home late that evening. I was sitting in the living room with a book on my lap, though I had not turned a single page. My body was still weak from treatment, but my mind had never been clearer. He did not greet me. He went straight to the kitchen, opened the fridge, poured himself a glass of water, and drank it in silence. Then he spoke. I lost my jaw. His voice was low, unsteady, very different from the confident tone he had used in the hospital. I did not look up. I already knew. He stood there for a moment, as if waiting for a reaction. Sympathy, shock, panic. When none came, he turned toward me. How do you know? He asked, his eyes narrowing. They called me in this afternoon. The contract was suddenly cancelled. They said the decision came from the top. I closed my book slowly and placed it on the table. Then I stood up. For the first time in years, I did not feel smaller standing in front of him. I felt taller. Because I am the one who ended that contract, I said. My company supplies your company. Or at least it used to. Rohit laughed. A short, nervous sound. Stop joking, he said. This is not the time. I walked toward the cabinet near the wall, opened a drawer, and took out an envelope. I placed it on the table between us. Read it, I said. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were copies of legal documents, company registration, board signatures, and one name, printed clearly at the top, mine. Rohit stared at the papers, then at me, then back at the papers. This is not possible, he whispered. You told me you stayed at home. I told you what you were comfortable believing, I replied. I paid the bills. I cleared your debts. I transferred money into your account every month while you believed you were the provider. His face drained of color. For years, I continued, I stayed quiet because I believed in marriage. I believed in dignity. I believed that love did not need power. I paused. But you taught me something else. Rohit took a step back. His breath became shallow. You cannot do this, he said. You cannot destroy my life. I looked at him, really looked at him. I did not destroy your life, I said calmly. I simply stopped protecting it. That night, Rohit slept on the couch. He did not argue. He did not shout. For the first time, he was afraid. The next morning, his phone would not stop ringing. Messages from colleagues, missed calls from HR, whispers spreading faster than facts. By noon, he received an official email. His termination was effective immediately. The reason cited was internal misconduct and loss of trust. He read it again and again, as if the words might change. They did not. That evening, Rohit finally broke. He stood in front of me, his shoulders slumped, his voice shaking. Please, he said, let us talk. We were happy once. I listened, quietly. Then I asked him one question. Where were you when I was lying in that hospital bed, wondering if I would survive? He opened his mouth. No words came out, because there were none. What Rohit did not know was that his fall was only beginning. Because while he was losing his job, I was preparing something else, something final, and something he could not undo. If you're listening right now, tell me something. When someone who broke you suddenly begs you to fix them, what would you choose? Forgiveness or truth? Stay with me. Because the truth about Rohit was about to come out, and once it did, there would be no place left for him to hide. Rohit started calling me late at night. At first, I ignored the calls. Then the messages came. Long ones. Desperate ones. He said he was sorry. He said he was confused. He said stress had changed him. I did not reply. 3 days after he lost his job, my phone rang close to midnight. I was still weak from treatment. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I saw his name on the screen. This time, I answered. Ananya, please, he said. His voice was broken. I made a mistake. I was wrong. I thought you were just a dependent woman. I did not know you were holding everything together. I said nothing. He kept talking, as if silence scared him more than words. I have lost everything, he continued. The house payments are overdue. No company wants to hire me. My record is ruined. Please give me another chance. I closed my eyes. A chance. He had 12 years. 12 years to respect me, to listen, to stand beside me. And he chose not to. Now that everything is gone, I said calmly, you finally see my worth. There was a pause. Then he whispered, please remember the good times. I smiled, not because I was touched, but because I remembered something else. Rohit, I said, do you remember the name Ria? The line went silent. I could hear his breathing change. How do you know that name? He asked. I spoke slowly, making sure every word landed. The HR department at your company conducted an internal review. They found evidence, late nights, private messages, hotel bookings. He tried to interrupt me. It was not like that, he said. It meant nothing. You are right, I replied. It was worse. I ended the call. That night, I sent one email to my lawyer. I requested a no contact clause during the divorce. I also approved the next step, legal action, because betrayal does not end with words. It leaves damage, and damage has consequences. The next morning, my lawyer came to see me. She brought evidence, screenshots, messages, photographs taken inside the office. Everything was dated. Everything was clear. I did not feel shocked. I felt relieved. Every doubt I had buried now had a name, a face, a reason. A formal notice was sent. Compensation for emotional harm, breach of marital duty, misuse of professional position. Rohit tried to fight it, but the evidence spoke louder than his excuses. Within weeks, his name became something people avoided. Not spoken openly, but remembered quietly. He moved out of the house, sold his car, left the neighborhood he once walked through proudly. I watched all of it from a distance. Not with anger, not with joy, with clarity. Some people do not lose everything at once. They lose it piece by piece, the same way they took others for granted. If you are listening right now, ask yourself something honestly. If the truth finally comes out, would you have the courage to stand by it? Or would you hide, hoping someone else will save you? Stay with me. Because this story is not ending in revenge, it is ending in something far more powerful: freedom. After the legal process began, my world became very quiet. Not the painful kind of silence I had lived with for years, but a clean silence, the kind that gives you space to breathe. Rohit was no longer in the house. His things were gone. The cupboards were empty. The walls felt lighter. For the first time in a long while, I could hear my own thoughts without fear. I focused on my treatment. Chemotherapy was not gentle. Some days my body felt like it was made of glass. Some nights I cried alone, not from pain, but from exhaustion. But something was different now. I was no longer fighting to save a marriage. I was fighting to save myself. My mother came to see me once she learned the truth. When she walked into my room and saw how thin I had become, her eyes filled with tears. She held my face in her hands and said, "My child, you should have told me." I leaned into her touch. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to be held. That day, something inside me healed a little more. At work, I made changes too. I delegated responsibilities. I stopped answering emails at midnight. I learned to rest without guilt. The company did not collapse because I slowed down. It became stronger. That was another lie I had believed for too long. That if I stopped carrying everything alone, everything would fall apart. It did not. Weeks passed. My hair began to grow back slowly, soft, uneven, but real. Every morning, I stood in front of the mirror and looked at the woman staring back at me. She was not the same woman who begged for peace. She was not the woman who stayed silent to survive. She was someone new, someone clearer, someone who knew her own worth. Rohit tried to reach me again, through emails, through mutual contacts, through apologies that arrived too late. I did not respond, not because I hated him, but because I no longer needed him to understand. There is a strange power in indifference. It does not scream, it does not explain. It simply moves on. One afternoon, I signed the final documents. The divorce was official. No drama, no arguments, just signatures. When I put the pen down, my hands did not shake. I felt calm. That evening, I packed my things, not because I was running away, but because I was choosing a new beginning. I moved into a small house on the outskirts of Dehradun. Nothing luxurious, just quiet mornings, fresh air, and space to heal. Every sunrise felt like a promise, not to anyone else, but to myself. If you are listening right now and you feel stuck in a life that keeps shrinking you, remember this. Leaving does not mean you failed. Staying silent does not make you strong. Strength is choosing yourself even when your voice shakes. Stay with me. Because the end of this story is not about what I lost, it is about what I finally reclaimed. I used to believe that survival was enough, that if I endured quietly, if I adjusted a little more, if I stayed patient a little longer, life would eventually reward me. I was wrong. Survival is not living, and silence is not strength. Today, when I look back at the woman I once was, the one who stayed in a marriage that kept shrinking her, I do not feel shame. I feel compassion. Because she did the best she could with the strength she had at that time. But this chapter ends differently. I did not win because Rohit lost. I won because I chose myself. I chose dignity over comfort, truth over fear, peace over pretending. And that choice changed everything. If you're listening to this and standing at a crossroads, wondering whether to stay quiet or speak up, remember this. No one is coming to save you, but you are strong enough to save yourself. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters more than you think. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes the bravest stories are the ones where a woman finally chooses herself